The royal palace of Zixer rose like a dream carved from moonlight and emerald fire, its spires twisting toward the twin suns that hung low over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of molten copper and lavender. Constructed from a crystalline alloy that pulsed faintly with inner energy, the palace shimmered as if alive, its corridors humming with ancient technology older than human civilization. Bioluminescent vines snaked along the archways, blooming with flowers that sang in soft, harmonic tones when touched. This was the seat of the Velari Dominion, a vast interstellar empire ruled by the enigmatic Queen Zara, whose name was whispered across galaxies with both reverence and fear. Her people, tall and graceful, with skin like jade and hair that flowed like liquid green flame, were known for their psychic elegance and mastery over biotechnology. They did not conquer through war, but through evolution, inviting species to join their union, promising transcendence, though few truly understood the price. And now, deep within the sanctum of the palace, a human stood trembling, utterly out of place. His name was Joran, a botanist from Earth's lunar colony, plucked from his greenhouse dome during a routine soil analysis when a beam of violet light engulfed him. One moment he was adjusting the pH levels of Martian wheat, humming an old folk tune about dandelions and dirt, and the next he was sprawled on a floor so smooth it felt like frozen silk, surrounded by beings who looked like gods from a myth he'd once read in a child's book. Joran wasn't a hero. He didn't carry weapons, hadn't trained for combat, and the most dangerous thing he'd ever faced before this was a malfunctioning irrigation drone. He wore a stained jumpsuit with Dr. Dirt stitched on the pocket, and his hair stuck up in all directions like he'd been electrocuted by curiosity. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to matter. But the Queen had summoned him. She appeared in the grand hall not with fanfare, but with silence so complete it made the air shiver. Zara moved like a storm wrapped in silk, her long, flowing robes shifting colors with her mood. Now deep forest green, now shimmering gold, now pulsing violet at the edges. Her skin glowed faintly, veins of bioluminescence tracing delicate patterns beneath the surface, like rivers of starlight mapped across her body. Her hair, a cascade of living emerald strands, floated as if underwater, each tendril curling and uncurling with a mind of its own. Her eyes, large, almond-shaped, and glowing faintly amber, locked onto Joran with an intensity that made his knees weak. She was beautiful, yes, but in the way a supernova is beautiful, magnificent, yes, but also terrifying, capable of burning entire worlds without blinking. Joran, she said, her voice a melody layered with echoes, as if multiple versions of her spoke at once. You smell of soil and sorrow. He swallowed hard. Yeah. I work with plants. Dirt's kind of part of the job. A ripple passed through the gathered Velari courtiers. Some stiffened, others tilted their heads in what might have been amusement. To insult the Queen was death. To amuse her, however, was rare and dangerous in a different way. Zara stepped forward, her bare feet making no sound on the humming floor. The temperature in the room seemed to rise. You were chosen not for your intellect, nor your strength, but because your genetic signature resonates with the first bloom, the origin of all life in this sector of space. You are compatible. Joran blinked. Compatible with what? Photosynthesis. She didn't smile, but something in her eyes flickered. Was that humor? Or hunger? With me. Before he could process that, she reached out, her fingers long and elegant, tipped with nails like polished obsidian. She grabbed his wrist. Her touch was electric. Not painful, but overwhelming, like plunging into a lake of pure sensation. Images flashed behind Joran's eyes. Ancient forests growing in seconds, planets blooming with color, stars being born and dying in the span of a breath. He gasped, trying to pull away, but her grip was unbreakable, not through force, but through something deeper, as if her will had wrapped around his bones. Touch me, human, she whispered, her voice now inside his mind, vibrating in his teeth. Touch me, and know what I am. He froze. Every instinct screamed at him to yank his arm back, to run, to scream, to do anything but obey. But something deeper, something primal, held him still. It wasn't fear. It was recognition, as if some forgotten part of him, buried beneath years of tending crops and drinking lukewarm coffee in zero gravity, remembered her. Remembered this moment. His fingers twitched, and then, slowly, trembling, he lifted his other hand. He touched her cheek. The world exploded, not in fire or sound, but in memory, not his own. He saw her as a child, standing beneath the great spire during the bloom ceremony, Her tiny hands pressed against the living crystal as it sang her true name into the stars. He saw her mother, the previous queen, dissolving into light during the transfer, her essence absorbed into the planetary core to guide the people from within. He saw Zara ascending the throne at 17 cycles, too young, too raw, too full of grief and fury. He saw her first act as ruler, sealing off the lower sectors of the palace where the old scientists experimented on captured species, turning their labs into gardens of healing flora. He saw her weep over the body of a dying ambassador from a desert planet, cradling him as his last breath turned into a seed that sprouted into a tree of gold. And then he saw the truth. The Velari did not conquer. They assimilated, not through violence but through connection. When two beings touched with true intent, their minds, memories, and souls intertwined. The queen could absorb the essence of another, not to destroy, but to understand, to preserve, to evolve. But it required consent, a true unguarded touch. And if the other being resisted, the connection could shatter both minds. That was why she had chosen Joran. Not because he was strong, but because he was open. A man who spent his life nurturing life, who spoke to plants, who believed in growth even in the sterile environment of a lunar dome. His soul was soft, porous, full of quiet empathy. And in a universe of warriors and politicians, that was the rarest thing of all. The vision shifted. He saw Earth not as it was but as it could be. A planet healed, its oceans clear, its skies free of smog, forests spreading like green fire across continents. And at the heart of it, a tree, tall as a mountain, its roots deep in the mantle, its branches brushing the edge of space. And standing beneath it, hand in hand with Zara, was him. Joran gasped, wrenching his hand back as if burned. He stumbled backward, crashing into a floating pedestal that chimed like a bell. The courtiers hissed, raising their hands, energy crackling at their fingertips. One of them, a tall male with silver markings on his temples, stepped forward, voice sharp as glass. "Foolish meat being, you dare break contact with the sovereign? You have seen the sacred memory and rejected it." Joran panted, his heart hammering. I didn't reject it. I just... Zara raised a single finger and silence fell. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes, those glowing amber pools, held something new. Not anger, not disappointment, interest. "You felt it," she said softly. "The future, the possibility." Joran wiped his mouth. "Yeah, I felt it. Also felt like my brain was being microwaved. With feelings." A ripple of shock went through the room. The silver-marked Velari looked ready to vaporize him on the spot. But Zara laughed. It was a sound like wind through crystal leaves, unexpected and bright. The courtiers froze. The queen never laughed. Not in public. Not in private. Not in recorded history. "You are unusual, Joran Vale," she said, stepping closer. "Most beings who touch me are overwhelmed. Some beg to be taken into the union. Others go mad. But you pulled away. And yet you didn't hate what you saw." "I didn't say that," Joran muttered. "I mean, the tree thing was cool, but also kinda intense. Like I didn't sign up for cosmic destiny, you know? I just wanted to grow potatoes." "The universe does not ask for permission," Zara said, her voice turning solemn. "It simply unfolds. And you, Joran Vale, are a seed planted in the wrong soil. You belong here, with me." "With you?" he echoed. "Like, romantically? Biologically? Spiritually? Because I should warn you, I'm not great at relationships. Last one ended because I named my ferns after her, and she said it was emotional displacement." Zara tilted her head. "You speak in riddles, but your heart is honest. That is rare." She turned and walked toward the central dais, where a massive orb of swirling green light hovered, pulsing like a heartbeat. "This is the core of Zintra, the heart of our people. Contains the memories of every Velari who has ever lived. And soon it will choose a new guardian." Joran frowned. "Let me guess. That's me." "No," she said. "It is us." Before he could respond, alarms blared. Deep, resonant tones that made the walls vibrate. The bioluminescent flowers wilted, their songs turning into shrieks. The sky outside darkened as a fleet of jagged, obsidian ships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the palace like vultures. The Zixer, ancient enemies of the Velari, a race of cybernetic predators who believed emotion was weakness and connection was contamination. They had attacked before, centuries ago, and been driven back by the power of the core. But now they had returned, and this time they had something new. A weapon. It landed on the palace grounds with a thunderous crash. A towering machine shaped like a spider, its legs made of black metal, its center a swirling vortex of anti-life energy. Where it stepped, the living crystal cracked and turned to ash. Plants withered. The air itself seemed to scream. The nullifier, Zara whispered, her voice tight. They've built a device to sever the core's connection to the planet. If it reaches the sanctum, Zintra will die. And with it, every memory, every soul stored within. Joran stared at the monstrous machine. So what, we run? Hide? I'm good at hiding. I once hid from my landlord for 3 months by pretending I was a maintenance bot. We fight, Zara said, turning to him. But not with weapons. With connection. She grabbed his wrist again. This time he didn't resist. The visions returned, fiercer, faster. He saw the history of the Velari. Their rise, their tragedies, their quiet victories. He saw the love they had for life in all its forms. The way they mourned extinct species by growing new ones in their image. He saw their fear of the Zixer not because they were strong, but because they felt nothing. No joy, no grief, no wonder. Just hunger for control. And he saw something else. A flaw in the nullifier. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a prison. A containment field for a stolen Velari elder, one of the first guardians, whose essence had been ripped from the core and used as a power source. The machine fed on her suffering, using her pain to generate the anti-life field. If we free her, Zara said in his mind, the weapon collapses. But how? Joran thought back, the telepathy growing easier. We can't just walk in there. No, she agreed. But you can. He blinked. Me? Why me? Because you are unconnected, unprogrammed, unafraid of feeling. The Zixer cannot sense you the way they sense us. To them, you are noise, static, a glitch. So I'm the bug in the system? In a manner of speaking. Joran exhaled. Great. So I'm the disposable human sacrifice. You are not disposable, Zara said, her voice soft. You are the bridge, the one who can carry life into the void. He looked at her, really looked. Not just at the queen, the alien, the goddess, but at the woman beneath. The one who carried the weight of 1,000,000 souls, who had no one to lean on, who ruled not for power, but because no one else could bear the burden. And for the first time, Joran didn't feel afraid. He felt needed. All right, he said, straightening. So what's the plan? Zara smiled. A real one, small but warm. You're going to pretend to be a corpse. What? The Zixer harvest the dead. They'll scan you, assume you're another casualty, and bring you into the machine. Once inside, you must reach the core chamber and touch the imprisoned elder. Release her. Set her free. And if I get caught? Then you die. Quickly, I hope. Reassuring. She touched his face, her fingers cool and soothing. You don't have to do this. He thought of his greenhouse on the moon, the little sprouts he'd nurtured from earth seeds, the way they leaned toward the light no matter how dim. I kind of do, he said, because if I don't, there won't be any more plants. Anywhere. Zara nodded. Then go. And Joran. If you succeed, the bloom will spread to your world. Your earth will heal. And you will never be just a botanist again. Yeah, well, he muttered, adjusting his jumpsuit. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, I gotta learn how to play dead. Disguising Joran as a corpse proved easier than expected. The Velari had advanced biomimicry fields that could simulate death signatures, slowed heartbeat, cold skin, neural silence. They wrapped him in a shroud woven from shadow fibers and placed him in a debris field near the palace gates, among the wreckage of a collapsed tower. His breathing was shallow, his eyes closed, his mind focused on thinking of nothing. No fear, no hope, just emptiness. It worked. The Zixer drones arrived within minutes. Sleek, insect-like machines with glowing red sensors and pincers that clicked as they scuttled over the rubble. One stopped beside him, scanning with a beam of cold light. Organic, human, deceased, no psychic residue. Collect for biomass conversion. Joran held still as they lifted him with mechanical arms and carried him toward the nullifier. The machine loomed larger now, a nightmare of gears and screaming energy. Inside, he could feel it. The pain of the trapped elder, a constant, low wail in the back of his skull. He was loaded into a chute and dropped. He tumbled through darkness, landing hard on a grated floor. The air was thick with static, his skin prickling. Around him, tubes pulsed with stolen light, and suspended in a central chamber was a figure. Translucent, glowing faintly green, her form twisted in agony. The Elder Guardian. Joran stood, peeling off the shroud. "Okay," he whispered. "Let's do this." He moved quietly, avoiding the patrolling drones. His botanist instincts kicked in, observing patterns, finding rhythms. The drones passed every 47 seconds. There was a maintenance panel near the chamber, slightly ajar. He crawled toward it, heart pounding. Just as he reached it, an alarm blared. Intruder detected. Organic movement. Non-Zixer signature. "Oh, come on," Joran hissed, yanking the panel open. Wires and glowing circuits spilled out. He had no idea what he was doing. He'd fixed irrigation systems, not alien superweapons. But then he remembered something Zara had shown him in the vision. A pattern, a sequence of pulses that resonated with Velari energy. He found a cluster of nodes and pressed his fingers to them, mimicking the rhythm. The machine shuddered. Lights flickered. The Elder's form twitched. A drone turned toward him. Joran didn't think. He ran. He sprinted across the chamber, dodging energy blasts that scorched the floor where he'd just been. He leapt over a chasm, rolled under a closing gate, and slammed his hand against the glass of the containment chamber. The moment he touched it, the connection surged. He saw her life, centuries of wisdom, of guiding young queens, of singing to the stars as they were born. He felt her betrayal, her capture, her endless torment. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." And then, with all the love he had for life, for growing things, for second chances, for the fragile beauty of a single leaf, he poured his own energy into the glass. Not to break it, to heal it. The chamber cracked, not from force, but from light. Green fire spread across the surface, and the Elder opened her eyes. She smiled, and then she rose. The nullifier exploded, not in fire, but in bloom. Vines of living crystal burst from the walls, wrapping around the machine, dissolving it into petals of light. The drones short-circuited, falling like dead insects. The sky cleared. Joran collapsed, gasping. Above him, the Elder hovered, radiant, free. "Thank you, little gardener," she whispered, before dissolving into 1,000 fireflies that scattered into the wind. Outside, the battle turned. The Velari, sensing the core's renewed strength, launched a counteroffensive, their psychic waves disrupting the Zixer command signals. Zara stood at the front, her hair blazing like a comet, her voice calling the very planet to rise in defense. And as the last enemy ship fled into hyperspace, a single figure emerged from the ruins. Joran Vale, covered in soot and vine sap, holding a small, glowing seed in his palm. The palace hummed with celebration, but Joran stood apart, staring at the horizon. Zara found him there. "You did it," she said. "We did it," he corrected. "But I still think I'm gonna need a raise." She laughed again, and this time he laughed with her. The seed in his hand pulsed softly. It was time to go home, but not yet, because the bloom had only just begun. The days that followed the fall of the nullifier passed like dreams woven from starlight and quiet laughter. The palace of Zintra, once cloaked in tension, now pulsed with a new rhythm, one of healing, of rebirth. The bioluminescent vines along the corridors bloomed brighter, their harmonic songs shifting from mourning to celebration. The very air smelled different, sweeter, richer, like rain on warm soil after a long drought. And at the heart of it all stood Joran Vale, the human who had touched the queen and lived, who had walked into the heart of darkness and brought back light in the form of a single glowing seed. Zara had not summoned him again, not formally. There were no grand declarations, no royal decrees. But every morning, without fail, a small tray of fruit, exotic, fragrant, grown in the royal gardens, appeared outside his chamber. And every evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, he would find her standing on the eastern balcony, gazing at the sky, her silhouette framed by the dying light. He began joining her, not because he was told to, but because something in his chest pulled him there, like roots reaching for water. They didn't speak much at first. Joran wasn't one for grand speeches, and Zara, for all her power, had spent centuries speaking in proclamations, not conversations. But silence between them didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the quiet between notes in a song, the pause before a seed cracks open to become a plant. One night, as the stars blinked into view, Joran broke the stillness. "You know," he said, poking at a glowing flower that had curled around the railing, "on Earth, We have this thing called dandelions. Ugly little weeds, really, but kids love them. They blow on the seeds and make wishes. Zara turned her head slightly, her emerald hair shifting like a slow tide. And do the wishes come true? He shrugged. Dunno. Never worked for me. I wished for a dog once. Got asthma instead. A soft hum vibrated from her throat. Almost a chuckle. You are an odd human. Yeah, well, you're an odd queen. You laugh. You bring me snacks. You didn't turn me into a tree or whatever it is you do to people who annoy you. I do not turn people into trees, she said, her voice dry. Only those who lie to the bloom. Joran grinned. Good to know. She studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting the starlight. You are not afraid of me anymore. He thought about it. I was never really afraid of you. Just the idea of you. The whole, touch me and I'll see the universe thing. That's a lot for a guy who once panicked because his fern got brown tips. Zara stepped closer. Yet you touched the elder. You freed her. You faced the machine that feeds on pain and offered it kindness. Kindness? Joran snorted. I was just trying not to pee myself. But you reached out, she said softly, when you had every reason to run. That is not just kindness, Joran. That is courage. He looked down, suddenly aware of how close she was. Her presence was warm, not in temperature, but in energy, like standing near a fire that doesn't burn. I don't feel brave, he admitted. I couldn't let her suffer. Not when I could do something. Zara reached out, not grabbing, not commanding, but offering her hand, palm up, as if presenting a gift. Then touch me again, she said. Not because I command it, not because the world demands it, but because you wish to. Joran hesitated. The last time he'd touched her, it had been overwhelming visions, memories, futures, emotions not his own crashing into his mind like waves. But now something in him had changed. He wasn't just a botanist from a lunar greenhouse. He had walked through fire and come out different. He placed his hand in hers. This time the connection didn't explode. It unfolded, slow, gentle, like a flower opening at dawn. He didn't see galaxies or ancient wars. He saw her, not the queen, not the sovereign of the Velari, but Zara. He saw her as a child, hiding in the gardens after her mother's passing, whispering secrets to the flowers because they were the only ones who wouldn't judge her tears. He saw her studying human culture from stolen data streams, watching old Earth comedies, laughing at slapstick, memorizing jokes she could never tell. He saw her standing alone in the throne room at night, pressing her palm to the core, asking it if she was doing the right thing. And he felt something else, something that made his breath catch. Loneliness, not the kind that comes from being surrounded by enemies, but the kind that comes from being surrounded by subjects, from being revered, obeyed, feared but never known. For centuries, she had carried the weight of her people, their memories, their hopes, their grief. And in all that time, no one had ever simply asked how she was. Until now. Joran pulled his hand back slowly, his eyes wet. You're really bad at asking for help, aren't you? Zara blinked. It is not in my nature. No kidding. You're like a walking monument. All dignity and duty. But you like bad jokes. You cry when plants die. You leave snacks for people you barely know. She looked away, but not before he saw the faintest shimmer in her eyes. Like dew on green glass. I am not meant to be small, she said. I am meant to be vast. Eternal. And you are, Joran said. But you're also allowed to be you. Even if that means laughing at a stupid joke. Even if that means liking someone. The word hung in the air. Someone. Not subject. Not ally. Not tool. Someone. Zara turned to him fully now, her expression unreadable. But her pulse, visible beneath the translucent skin of her neck, quickened. You confuse me, Joran Vale, she whispered. You are fragile, mortal, temporary. And yet, when you are near, the core sings differently. The planet breathes easier. The bloom grows toward you. He scratched his head. So what? I'm like a walking fertilizer? No, she said, stepping even closer. You are a complement, a balance. Where I am fire, you are water. Where I am sky, you are soil. You ground me. Joran's heart thudded. That's actually kind of poetic. For an alien queen. She smiled, small, real, and entirely hers. I have been practicing. They stood there, side by side, as the stars wheeled above them. And for the first time in longer than either could remember, they were not alone. In the weeks that followed, their bond deepened not in grand gestures, but in quiet moments. Joran taught Zara how to grow things, real things, not just the bioengineered wonders of Velari science. He showed her how to plant seeds in simple soil, how to water them gently, how to talk to them, which she found absurd, until a vine curled around her finger the moment he said, "Tell it you believe in it." She named her first sprout Little Light, and guarded it like a treasure. In return, she taught him to listen, to the hum of the palace, to the whispers of the wind, to the slow, ancient song of the planet itself. He learned to feel the pulse of the core, not as a threat, but as a heartbeat. And when he closed his eyes, he could sense the lives around him. Not just the Velari, but the plants, the insects, the very stones of the palace. One evening, as they sat in the royal garden, a place now filled with earth plants Joran had coaxed from smuggled seeds, Zara asked him a question. "Would you stay?" He looked up from the tomato plant he was staking. "Stay? Here? In the palace? With you?" "Yes." He wiped dirt from his hands. "I mean, Earth's still there. My greenhouse. My job. My landlord's probably charging late fees." "You could have a new greenhouse," she said softly. "Bigger. With real sunlight. With me." Joran studied her. She wasn't commanding. She wasn't demanding. She was asking. And in that simple act, he saw how far she'd come. "I'd miss coffee," he said finally. "And bad TV. And complaining about the weather." "You would have all of that," she said. "And more. The bloom could reach your world now. Your people could heal their planet. You could be the one to show them how." He exhaled, looking at the garden. The mix of earth green and Velari glow, the way the dandelions had somehow sprouted beside a crystal flower that sang in E minor. "I'd also have to deal with your court," he said. "That silver guy still glares at me like I stole his lunch." "Commander Vaith dislikes all humans," Zara admitted. "But he saved my life during the Zixer invasion. If you can survive him, you can survive anything." Joran grinned. "So what you're saying is, if I stay, I get you a planet full of singing plants and a cranky space butler?" She reached out and took his hand. "And this." The connection sparked. Gentle, warm, full of color and quiet understanding. No visions, no overwhelming force. Just them. Two souls, different in every way, yet fitting together like roots and soil. He didn't say yes. Not yet. But he didn't say no. And when he leaned his head against her shoulder, and she rested her cheek on his hair, the core pulsed once, bright, strong, and full of promise. The bloom was growing, and so were they. The day the bloom covered the sky in petals of light, the entire Velari Dominion paused to watch. It was not a command, not a decree, just a feeling, a pull in the blood and soul, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. In the heart of the royal garden, where earth soil met alien crystal, Joran Vale stood beside Zara. No longer a lost botanist, no longer an accidental hero, but something neither species had a word for, *belonging star. The ceremony was not of rings or vows, but of roots and resonance. They stepped onto the living stone, a platform grown from the core, and pressed their palms together. The ground trembled, not in violence, but in joy, as vines of emerald and gold spiraled around their arms, binding them not by force, but by choice. Joran laughed, a real, loud, unguarded sound, and Zara, for the first time in her long life, laughed with him, her voice ringing like bells through the palace. The bloom surged, spreading across Sintra, then leaping into space, carried on solar winds toward Earth. Years passed, though time meant little now. Joran never did get used to the floating teacups or the flowers that sang lullabies, but he loved them anyway. He built a greenhouse the size of a city, filled with earth plants thriving under twin suns, and taught young Velari how to whisper to seeds. Zara still ruled, still carried the weight of her people, but she no longer carried it alone. She learned to rest, to sit in silence, to eat strange human foods, especially something called peanut butter, which she declared sacred after her first bite. Commander Vaith never smiled, but he began leaving small offerings at Joran's door, a rare crystal, a data chip of Earth comedy, once even a slightly scorched fern. Progress. The connection between them deepened with every season. They no longer needed to touch to feel each other. Just a glance, a breath, a thought sent like a breeze through the mind. When Joran grew older, slower, his hair turning silver, Zara did not change, yet she never resented time. Instead, She wove strands of her own energy into his, not to stop aging, but to walk beside him through it. And when his steps faltered, she was there, her arm around his, her voice soft in his ear. One evening, as the twin suns set and the stars blinked awake, Joran sat on the balcony, an old man wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea steaming beside him. Zara sat beside him, ageless, glowing faintly in the dusk. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Choosing me?" She turned, her amber eyes full of centuries of love. "You were not a choice, Joran. You were a truth." He smiled, leaning into her. "Good, because I'm not great at goodbyes." "You won't have to say one," she whispered. "Not ever." And when his breathing slowed, when his heart gave its final beat, Zara placed her hand over his chest and sang. A single, pure note that rippled through the core. The bloom responded, spreading across the galaxy, carrying his essence, his kindness, his laughter, into the stars. She did not mourn in silence. She mourned in growth. In the garden, a new tree rose, tall, strong, its leaves shaped like hands reaching for the sky. At its base, a single dandelion bloomed, its seeds glowing like tiny suns. And every evening, without fail, the queen would sit beneath it, her head resting against the bark as if listening. And sometimes, just sometimes, the wind would carry a whisper. Asterisk, still growing, aren't we? Asterisk. And the world answered with flowers. The blooms spread across galaxies, carrying Joran's spirit like seeds on stardust. Zara ruled with gentler hands, her heart no longer a fortress, but a garden. She never remarried, never replaced him, because some bonds transcend lifetimes. Every spring, a single dandelion bloomed on the palace steps, glowing with soft light. Children would touch it, and for a moment, they'd laugh at a joke only they could hear. The core hummed a new song, one of love, loss, and quiet joy. And in the royal greenhouse, the vines still grew toward the same spot, as if warmed by an invisible hand. Zara would stand there, eyes closed, whispering stories to the air. And the wind, ever faithful, would carry her words to the stars, where love, like life, never truly ends.